All right. Hi, everyone out there. My name is Kate Hallock, and I'm Executive Director for David's Refuge. And today with me, I have a very special couple, Sarah and Sasha Hallock, who are a David's Refuge family and also amazing host volunteers who really drive our mission forward and support other moms and dads who are on the journey of caregiving. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sasha. How are you?
Very good.
Good. So, what would you like our amazing viewers, people who are watching today, to know about your story and know about you?
Sure. Yeah. So we have two boys, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. We live in New York City. I'm an artist. What would you like to say?
No, I think you covered the bases.
So, you're hardworking parents and you live in New York City, which has been an amazing whirlwind, I'm sure, through COVID. Has it been crazy?
It has been. It's been a really rough year. I mean, I know that's for everyone, but we feel like as a city, the community, like we all kind of had to be like, okay, we're going to get through this together.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're happy to see you smiling today. And it looks like the sun is shining. It is not shining here in Syracuse today. Shocker, everyone. Well, today I had asked you both, and I'm so thankful you're here, to help us get a greater understanding of what it's like, to be going on your journey and then all of a sudden become a caregiver, become a family caregiver. So you don't have a medical background, and your son Judah has, obviously your gift of his beautiful life was brought to you, and you also became caregivers at the same time as becoming mommy and daddy. So Let's jump in, if you're willing to share your story a bit and tell us about what it was like to become mommy and daddy and caregiver.
Yeah. I remember really vividly when Judah was born. So he has a rare genetic disorder. Judah is our 8-year-old. He's our oldest. And we had no idea that, that we were carrying these mutated genes that combined would cause major issues in him. And so even when he was born, we still didn't know. And he seemed typical and healthy. And so we went home with this newborn. And I remember looking at this baby and thinking, oh, I feel so guilty that my baby is so perfect because other families deal with colic or jaundice. I mean, these things that now in hindsight were so small. And I just remember thinking like, we have this baby that is really healthy. And lo and behold, he had this thing going on in him, and it was just going to take a couple of months to really show itself. And so around 2 or 3 months, the doctor, maybe 1 or 2 months, our pediatrician kind of mentioned that he wasn't holding up his head. He had failed his newborn hearing screening. And so we started to kind of get these clues that something wasn't right. And I remember just kind of like the fog of walking into these different specialist office, wondering if they're going to be able to figure out what's going on. And finally, we got our diagnosis of this very rare genetic disorder that affects most of his system. So he uses today. It's easy to describe what he does today to give you an idea of his condition. So he is a wheelchair user because he's not able to crawl, sit, or stand, or he can sit now, but move around. He has a feeding tube because he doesn't eat by mouth. He has a communication device, and he has very delayed communication. And those are the major areas. Right?
Yeah, some cognitive delay as well that we're still trying to understand how that's connected to communication delay and his overall disorder.
So I'm trying to think back to initially we had a lot of people kind of rally around us to say, can we bring you a meal? We heard you have this going on, how can we support you? And really, I remember just feeling like every day, like, okay, like what does he need today? I got to do that. And I think Sasha went through a time in the beginning of really feeling this heavy weight and grief over the loss of what we had expected our family to look like and our relationship with our son to look like. And for me, it was different. I was kind of like, oh, he needs this therapy, I can do it. He needs me to, seek out this equipment, I can do this. And I didn't really give myself any space to kind of feel the weight of what, our lives would be.
Right.
And I think it came later for me, within the next 2-3 years, where I realized, oh, I haven't dealt with any of that. And maybe initially it looked like I was handling things better than Sasha, but we were just kind of on different timelines.
Right. So what did that finally look like for you when you were able to, what you said, deal with some of those feelings? What did that process look like?
A lot of tears, usually just between the two of us, but sometimes with friends, but a lot of just allowing myself to sit with the grief and the reality that, like, we can't maybe participate in the same activities the same way other families do. And that was kind of the thing that I was losing, right? Like, I always thought my kid would be playing on the playground with others. And I realized, he's not gonna be able to climb.
Right.
Or if he does, I have to be physically the one moving him around.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of just, speaking that reality and saying, wow, this is really hard, or wow, I missed this.
Right.
Yeah.
Sarah, what are some things, those are things that obviously, Judah will be impacted by. What are some actual things that you as a caregiver feel that might be lost? As you became a caregiver, what were those things for you personally and for Sasha?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think about how, and some of it I have trouble putting to words, but I just think about how my interactions with other friends, with other families, especially in a family context, is so different. So physically, when we show up to a play date or an event, I've recently been using the language of we become Judah's body for him. Unless he's just going to sit and hang out on his iPad, which he can do. But if not, if he's going to engage in any activity, we have to help him communicate, help him move around, transfer. And you look around the room, and the only parents that are doing that are ones with infants. And then that phase, then they get out of that phase. And so it's like the reality of, it's been 8 years that one of us has to be his body in those spaces, which means that we're not grabbing a cup of coffee and standing in the corner with the other parents chatting, So I think one of the losses is how many opportunities there are to make those connections with other parents.
Right.
I feel like I have to try really hard. And sometimes accept that in a certain environment, I'm not going to be able to connect and chat, and I might have to do that outside of the group. But then again, it's like, where's the, all of us have busy lives. Where's the space in my life to reach out to get another person that I want to get to know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, there's so many studies that say keys to human happiness fall within having really solid relationships with other people. And so I think we can all understand and connect the dots to what you're saying, that you aren't able to, do the same socialization as a lot of other parents who have typical kids. And I remember another David's Refuge mom telling me that, most parents think they're going to have a child and the child will be with them for 18 years and it's going to be a really intense 18 years. And then your child will kind of fly the nest, which is very common for us to think about. And she said, my son will never fly out of the nest, Kate. He is going to be with us, for his whole entire life. And that was a really big piece to understand for me as I started in my role at David's Refuge.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. We've thought a little bit about that. That is probably a reality for us that we're just starting to even contemplate.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Has there been a hardest time for you in your journey so far as family caregivers and mommy and daddy? Yeah.
I would say the first year was one of those times. And part of that was because Judah was so medically fragile.
Sure.
And so we felt like we were just fighting just for him to survive. He just was so small and, needed a 24-hour feeding tube. And and so there, yeah, and so there was the medical, physical side of it, and then just the tidal waves of grief and shattered expectations, and like you said, all of a sudden being thrust into a role that we didn't feel prepared for, in terms of the caregiving, because and that was also a very, very hands-on caregiving time, up. I mean, all parents of babies are up in the night, but I mean, we just,
For years, yeah.
because of the feeding tube, and he also had extreme vomiting and just other complications that were really tough to deal with. So I would say that was one of those seasons. And then I would say this year with COVID.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason for this year is because for the first time in many years, we experienced what it was like for all the supports that we depended on just to make life livable taken away for 10 months of just straight, like no home aides can come into the home, schools closed, no paraprofessional, no therapies.
Right.
And it was just Sarah and I. And
yeah. So if you don't mind, dig into that a little bit, because I don't think most people understand, what a normal type of support looks like for you. So what would a normal type of people coming in look like? And, what you said, it was all pulled back. So explain that a little bit more if you can, or paint that picture for us.
The biggest support that we receive is really just his school day. So the fact that he's going to school for a certain number of hours, and that while he's there, a nurse is giving him a meal through his feeding tube, that he's receiving his therapies there, and that they're kind of coordinating that effort to keep him, trying to advance towards those goals that he has. And then in addition to that, I mean, we have the CDPAP homemade kind of program that a lot of people in New York State are in. And we've sporadically taken advantage of it. And so I think there's been seasons where we've had someone coming in a couple hours a week, and then where we've had trouble finding someone that we want to have come in. And that's really what happened this time, is that suddenly, legally they were allowed to work through the pandemic, but we didn't have people that were hired for us that felt comfortable, or that we felt comfortable because of their exposure coming in.
Yeah.
Am I missing another support?
No, I think, the school is the biggest one. I mean, when we tallied it up, in a given day, Judah would have, 7 to 8 trained adult professionals who are working with him. And that just spreads out the care and the mental capacity to think through what this child needs to help him move forward.
Right.
It really takes a team to do it well. And so school is the main place that we really, and also that's just the way, sort of special education and services for disabilities are set up in our state, right? Like once kids go to school, it all transfers to the school district. And we did, at a certain point, once, we realized that they weren't going to be going back in the fall, and the school district would not provide in-person services in her home. And Judah was not able to do remote schooling or therapies for the most part. So it was so wrong in so many ways, because there weren't accommodations made for a child that couldn't click a mouse pad and was expected to be on Zoom. So it showed a lot of disparity in terms of equity and accommodations for kids with special needs, which I'm sure a lot of parents that are watching this can agree with and felt. Remote learning for the most part was, and it's a really complex topic, and I want to have empathy for teachers and educators that were trying their best, but it also shows a system that for the most part works for typically developing kids. And so at a certain point we realized we can't rely on this. And so we were taking Judah twice a week to NYU to get physical therapy, occupational therapy, because they would do it in person. We were taking him to a speech therapist. So in the midst of the pandemic, eventually, this is in the fall, we were taking him probably 4 times a week to different appointments, just so he could get some in-person instruction.
And even that was kind of I don't even know how to say it, but like you were gaining something but losing something. So it was really great that we took that initiative to get those therapies done. But as soon as our kids went back to school part-time in February, and as soon as they went back, we stopped the external therapies. And I realized how much driving him around multiple times a week
Right.
was weighing on me. Suddenly I felt like, oh, I have this space back that I had been missing. And I was like, oh, that was a lot to do.
Well, and Sarah, isn't there something we said about you knew you had to do that, right? To continue the progress that you were making and to keep his services moving. But at what cost to you as family caregiver? You know, what I think that's what we miss a lot is that when a family caregiver is at the hospital or seeing physicians and this laundry list of items is given for their loved one, who does that fall on?
Right.
Really complete the list and get to the therapies. And wouldn't it be nice if the caregiver was taken into consideration or even asked, you know, is this doable for you? That kind of thing. You know, have you ever experienced being asked if you could actually do all of the things?
I mean, only a little, and only recently did we have a few therapists that we really connected with. And as we were, you know, communicating about our family life and saying to them, I'm so glad you're working on this skill with Judah. As a family, you know, this other thing, like maybe it's his communication device, is our highest priority. And physical therapy he needs, and it's great. But like, we are not going to be doing home exercises right now because we are learning this new technology and trying to model it. And to have them respond like, that's okay, we'll do it. You know, ideally, you're doing it all the time, but your child has multiple disabilities, multiple needs. You know, choose the one thing that you're gonna try to implement and move forward on, and everything else, it's okay. You can't. They reminded us that he actually can't develop 6 things all at once. Your body kind of, you know, will suddenly start being able to do one thing, and everything else will plateau for a while and then do something else. And that happens in typical babies as they develop, that they, you know, one thing explodes and the other doesn't. And that's normal. And so it was, I mean, but that was a rare experience to have someone say that. But I feel like I've grown in my ability to kind of communicate. And I use the word capacity a lot. I say our family only has the capacity for so much. And so, you know, sometimes when we're offered new ideas for therapy, I kind of say, well, yes, he could benefit from it, but actually he can't go for hours and hours after school to something. And as a family, we can't do that either.
What do you think it's been in your journey? You've been doing this for 8 years. So what would you say to a brand new caregiver so that maybe they don't wait as long to feel empowered to do the things that you just said? You know, what was the change for you?
I think part of it was, and I knew this intellectually before, but really internalizing that idea that like, if I'm in a really bad place, then I'm actually not, you know, if I don't take care of myself first, that I can't take care of the family. You know, it's something we hear a lot, but when you really start to see it in action and you say, okay, maybe I can't get 8 hours of sleep a night solid because of my circumstances, but if I don't look at where I can rest, you know, if I'm losing physical sleep, how can I get a little bit more? And if I just keep taking it away, then actually the next day and the next week and a year later, I'm not, you know, I don't have as much for myself. I don't have as much for them. And, you know, I wish that I was in the place that I said, well, I want to take care of myself for myself, but it's easier to start with, I'm going to take care of myself so I can keep being there for my family. There's just something that feels more altruistic. Like I can say that that's a reason I'm taking care of myself. But really experiencing that over and over again and saying, oh, it doesn't work. And even the less physical caregiving, right? Or self-care. So I do, but you know, if I can just connect with one friend a week in some capacity, then I feel, you know, emotionally better. And I'm more connected. And so when I start to spiral where I'm kind of very isolated, I'm not talking to anyone except my family, I realized, oh, I need to step away from them and connect with a friend, and make that a habit so that I can be a better person as an individual that's part of this family.
Wow. So would that be the message you'd really like to leave or have really heard loud and clear from this time together for other caregivers? What would your message really be to those people who are just getting into facing these challenges?
Yeah, I think that would definitely be part of it. And I think another part of it would be, don't be afraid to be honest and direct, especially with people that they do feel like you're safe in that relationship, like your good friends, close family members, to say, hey, like I'm feeling this way and I just need to share. This is so hard. And Sasha and I've had multiple conversations with people we're close with at times saying in hindsight, hey, we feel like we kind of are doing this whole thing in our family, and then we show up, but no one's ever asking us about how it is, or it's not coming up in conversation. But like, we want you to ask about how we're doing as caregivers. We want you to ask about how it is to have a child with special needs, and not just and for them to say, oh, we had thought about it, but we didn't know how to bring it up. So it was annoying that we had to initiate that as the ones that are already carrying a heavy load. But we find that over and over again, at some point, if we want things to change, sometimes we have to initiate it. And the same thing is true for like getting more support. We've been in a place lately where we've said, you know what, not just getting these paid homemaids, but like we really need more community support. We need friends that live nearby that are able to, if we're in a bad place, we can call them. We can call 3 people and maybe one of them is available to come over for 2 hours and sit with the kids because we just can't take it anymore. Yeah. And we don't have that yet, but we've said, okay, we need to figure out how to ask and how to see if we can figure out who those people are. I might be missing something.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure put on families in general. Like we tend to be an individualistic country that just is like the message is self-sufficiency and you can do it. And this pressure to just not ask for help and to be able to do it yourself. And when you put that kind of messaging on a family with raising a child with significant disabilities, it's a recipe for disaster because no family is meant to do it alone. Like in general, like we need each other, we need community. Every parent needs help. And that's actually a good thing. And I think for a long time, because we have been able to somehow do it. So whatever that means, I mean, we're alive. I don't know. So people look at us and say, wow, I just thought you had it all together. Or it's like, and that hurts a lot because it's to us, it makes me realize, wow, they have no idea what our lives are like. And that isn't on them. Oftentimes, like Sarah just said, it's that for whatever reason, we didn't feel safe, or like that we didn't communicate how we were really doing, and just to be honest, it's hard. It's something that we struggle with in our marriage, is communicating wants and needs. And so take that outside of our little nuclear family, and it's really hard to like clearly articulate this is what we need, especially because it comes with the risk of being rejected or being hurt, or with that need being expressed but then not met. So it's a complex thing, but I really agree with what Sarah said. To young caregivers, I would say, please ask for help sooner and let people know how you're really doing. You can't do it alone, and you were never meant to do it alone. Right. It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah.
And I think you don't need to feel guilty for utilizing help or asking for help. I think there's something in me that said, oh, well, I need help with this and this, but I can handle everything else. I don't need people to bring me meals. I don't need, but the reality is, over time, wow, any meal I received was one less that, thing either that I had to do or I had to think about. Any way that someone wants to help, really, like cumulatively, you think about what your needs are. They're pretty good.
Right. Thank you so much for that perspective. Where David's Refuge is truly working to head into our next steps as an organization, is to really open up this idea of common ground. And when you're speaking, I'm sitting here thinking, you know, a lot of times our society thinks, well, you will find a friend group of parents who also have children with special needs. And I think what we all have to remember is that we're all humans. We all want to be together, and we all want to support one another to just keep moving forward. And that common ground concept is that we can all be together and rise together, fall together, be in it together. And we don't have to have everything exactly the same to share common experiences in parenting. And we can also put our hands out and really work to support one another in this community. So I just hope that other parents will feel brave and feel like they can just step out and actually speak their truth about what life looks like, that absolutely no one is perfect and no one is actually doing it well. We're all just doing the best that we can, right? Yeah, we are absolutely doing that. I want to thank you for this. And I think that you really gave us a glimpse into the depth of what life has been like for you as, you know, as individuals and as a couple, and as you continue to navigate your beautiful journey. And we're just so grateful to have you as part of our David's Refuge family. Is there anything else you want to say to anyone who's watching today?
We love you. Keep going. You're doing amazing work. I think, you know, one of the things that I've been able to think about, that we've been able to think about, is caring for someone with disabilities is as hard as it is. It's really meaningful. It really is. And inviting other people to be part of that is meaningful.
Yeah.
And I know it's so hard to hear that sometimes, because it's just like, I just want it to end. I don't want to be doing this. But you're caring for some of the most vulnerable and marginalized people that often get overlooked, that sometimes aren't even seen as human. And to love and serve people that are viewed like that, I think is a really beautiful thing, and shows the world that they do matter and their lives do have purpose. And yeah, so we're with you.
Beautiful, beautiful sentiment. It's so true. And I love how you said, even allowing everyone into that piece and that story is just going to make for a more beautiful, you know, society at large. We all need to understand each other's differences, welcome those differences, and be there for each other. It's really that simple, right? So being along journeys with one another. Thank you for helping us remind other caregivers that they're not alone, that what they do matters, and God in this community loves them. Sky's the limit. We're going to keep working and caring for Caregiver. Thank you so much, you guys.
For all you're doing.